With much of the focus already on the upcoming season for college football fans, anticipation already being built, right now, a lot of programs around the country are really focusing on the future. And that absolutely includes the Pitt Panthers and the Pitt football program. And Pitt has been doing work, to say the very least. Mike Asti, Mike Vukovcan and Karl Ludwig here with a Pittsburgh Sports Now conversation on what Pitt has been doing recruiting wise, because again, they have been doing a lot, having the most recruits that are now verbally committed in the country, as amazing as that is as well. And we're going to get into things here again, Mike, Karl, and kind of a Mike and Mike combination here again, as I get us all now to the forefront. And Pitt, well over 20 commits right now, I believe. A lot of positions they're working with, a lot of 4-star kids. Underwood doing work. Pat Narduzzi always involved and very happy with what's going on with the program. A lot of reason for Pitt fans to be excited, not only about this upcoming season, but more importantly, the future, Mike.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing the last 2 weeks. It's not a surprise because it's happened the last couple of years, but the work they do in June is they're closers. People the last few years, fans always have reason to question, Pat Narduzzi and can he get the job done as far as recruiting, bringing high level recruits.
Right.
He's answering the question this year. I think he answered it last year. I think people focus a little bit too much, not entirely, because it does have some merit, but the level of recruits. Pitt's shown that they're able to coach kids up. They're able to look for specific kids that maybe other programs don't, maybe don't fit their system. And I think they also look for, the character in kids. And I think you put all that together. That's the reason why Pitt has success. And the last 2 weeks to get 20 or to get 10 recruits in the last 2 weeks. The amazing thing, Karl, is getting kids here. That's always been their focus. If they're able to get kids on campus, it's one thing to go out and try to recruit a 4-star kid. Other programs across the country are doing the same thing.
Yeah, they're all sending them offers.
Right? Yeah, they're all sending offers. The key for them is, can they get those kids to make official visits? And when they do make official visits, the percentages show that the Pitt coaching staff is very, very good at closing the deal.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of so entering April, they had 11 commitments, and all those guys were also guys they had on campus for junior day or for just an average for a spring visit. I mean, so when you go from 10, 5 and 5 the last 2 weeks, I mean, I believe it was of the 13 visitors they had last weekend, 9 of them are commits now. They had 4 entering, they have 5 more commit while they're there. Yeah. I mean, the proof is there where and Narduzzi says it all the time, if they can get guys on campus, most times they leave as Pitt Panthers, and it's a testament to not just Pittsburgh and the culture there, but the coaching staff for sure. And when you have guys like Charlie Partridge and Archie Collins, Corey Sanders, Tyquan Underwood, I mean, those guys are very, very good at their jobs and making sure the guys they bring in feel at home, feel wanted, feel like a priority. And as we've seen the past 2 weekends, I mean, it's 10 commitments of 23, 24 guys who were there. It's definitely paying off for him.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid batting average and more on the way. There's already more kids that you guys reported that are going to be making official visits here in the coming weeks. There's already more connection and more even tea leaves to read on some commitments that have not actually been announced that may very much be locked in to the program and have maybe even told Narduzzi and company, but have yet to put it out with a post on Twitter or wherever. So that number that we have right now where it's leading the country may actually already be higher terms of what Pitt actually knows. So that's very impressive. And you also have to look at this is a benefit of being a successful program. You win a bowl game last year, win 9 games, year before, obviously win the ACC with a Heisman candidate. That doesn't guarantee recruiting success, but it helped provide stability and show these kids that if you do come here, you can have success and get to the NFL. A lot of kids staying 3-4 years and then getting to the NFL, looking at Cansey and company this past year in the NFL draft, showing those kids that if you do stay at Pitt for several years in a row, you can get to the league. That's also big too. And I had somebody with Embassy Sports on my show who even brought up when we were talking about Pat Narduzzi versus Deion Sanders and that whole the war of words between the two of them. Pitt's never going to probably go to the transfer portal as much as freaking Deion is not going to be a 70+ kids from the portal like Deion's been doing. But Pat Narduzzi doesn't have to because he can really develop kids. And that's kind of what Mike was talking about with you can show kids you come here. Doesn't matter whether you're 5-star or 3-star, the program can develop you and get to the NFL at the end of the day.
I think the narrative is going to eventually die here as far as people questioning what type of program Pitt is and can they do this and that. Pitt is a legitimate football program. They're a legitimate top 30 program in the country that really don't have to take a back seat to anybody as far as, are they on the level of Ohio State in terms of recruits and, a handful of other guys? Maybe not, but Pitt has the people questioning Pitt and can they stay up there and can they continue to recruit? That's going to eventually have to die here. We're going to have to quit talking about that because seriously, because
to be fair though,
these recruits, with these coaches that they have here, as long as these guys 100%. Stay on board here, Pitt's going to be recruiting like this. Currently I wrote a story today. They're number 9 in the country as far as team recruiting, and it's obviously 6 months until
I was going to go
in signing day, and that's not going to that's not going to be the case come December. They're not going to be a top 10 team once these other programs start filling it out. But if Pitt, I don't think it's a stretch to start thinking that from now on, Pitt's every year going to be a top 20, top 25 program as long as these coaches stay on board here and they're able to keep these big guys because Narduzzi has. I've said this a million times. And I don't think I give Pat Narduzzi enough credit, and I should probably start doing so. I credit his assistants a lot. It starts with the head guy too.
Has
and
to.
The people he has around him right now, and the support he gets from everybody, NIL, the athletic department. Pitt's at a level right now that they haven't been in a long time.
No, and Carl and I actually were talking about this off the air through text just last night. A lot of that is Heather Lyke on down. Got to give Narduzzi credit, but the administration allowing the program to be this way, because if we were doing this show 3 years ago, I don't think there'd be as much positivity in terms of what Pitt's doing recruiting wise or even the stability of the program. And then you take maybe somewhat of a surprising year to win the ACC crown, and then you get it to now where they should be a top 25 perennial program, whether it be on the field or recruiting wise. Mike and Carl, I did kind of want to ask and go in the direction of the rankings because Mike, you and I were doing shows last year, and we did even a show at National Signing Day, and the conversation had to be asked of, well, Pitt's had success on the field, but if you look at the national rankings across the board, they didn't blow you away. I mean, West Virginia and other schools that have been struggling were actually ranked better than Pitt after the last high school crop. So that's not the case right now. We're only into June, as you mentioned. They're probably not going to finish top 10, but they shouldn't fall all the way down to in the 50s again. Did they prove something this year in terms of recruiting? Was that a false narrative that everybody shouldn't have been asking? Why were those ranks the way they were then? And now we're seeing the ranks the way they are now with a lot more 4-star kids because they haven't played any games since we talked in December until now in June.
I don't know. They're just, I don't have a really good answer for that as far as why, but they're just getting in with a really high quality kid. And even some of their 3-star kids that they've gotten, they're 5.7s, 5.8s, which means they're on the brink of being 4-star kids. They're going to finish this class with a lot, depending on what recruiting service you go by. As I mentioned, they're number 9 with Rivals. They're number 11 with 247 Sports, and they're only a couple points away from being 8 or 9 with them. So
that's all outstanding.
Yeah. And as we mentioned, the number of 4-star recruits, we're going to eventually have to do a story on this when some of these kids announce their decision, because they're going to be getting in on some 4-star kids in the near future. This might turn out to be the most that Pitt has gotten under Narduzzi. I don't have an answer for it. Maybe it's just kids are just finally starting to believe in what they're doing. I think Kenny Pickett was a huge part of what's happening. He's the talk of, him and Aaron Donald are the face of the Pitt program now as far as the NFL. Anytime we talk to a kid, I'd say 1 out of every 2 or 3 kids in our conversation, call or I talking to guys, they either bring up the name Kenny Pickett or Aaron Donald.
Right.
I think that's helping,
and that's not that long ago. It's not like they're bringing up names from 20 years ago, like some programs have to. This is recent kids 2 years ago with Pickett. But Pickett, I mean, he did this 2 years ago. Did it take last year winning a bowl game and having another successful season? If not, obviously they didn't win the ACC again. But did it take that to prove it to these kids that Pitt is really legit? Because it was a while before they got to where they were a couple years ago. It's still kind of confusing to me, I guess. And I think most people why they were expected to do better in terms of ranks this past recruiting season, and then now they're kicking butt.
Carl.
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting. I mean, the rankings are awesome. I mean, it's fun to be ranked high, and I think it's been kind of misleading the past few classes because they haven't had very big classes. They had a lot of guys come back as super seniors in 21 and 22. So just going off of that, I mean, they had higher numbers of players. They couldn't offer more scholarships, but the guys they did bring in the last 2 classes, which were the lower ranked classes, have been impact players already. Okay. And if you back to the last full class they have is 21, which is the Elliott Donald, Nikai Johnson year. That was a top 25 class in the country, according to most of the recruiting rankings. I think now that Pitt is going full force in recruiting again and bringing in these 25-person classes, I think we'll get back to more of that top 20-ish range, like Mike mentioned earlier. I think it's more so just the winning has helped. Having the exposure helps. Playing with the Steelers is always a huge draw for recruits. I think it's just in terms of the recent bump, I think it's just more of Pitt being back to bringing in these big classes. And getting 4 stars helps. They weren't getting 4 stars the last couple of years, but I think it's just a testament to Pat Narduzzi and the culture he's built and the exposure he's gotten the program with the winning and with his name being out there as someone on the kind of the forefront of NIL discussion.
Seems like they're leveraging the Steelers a lot more and better now than certainly 10 years ago. Like they really, that is a big deal to say the least. Now, obviously Pat Narduzzi is going to get credit for this, as he should. And we talked about administration on down with NIL, and that's a big part of this. And Mike, we touched on before, when you're talking recruiting, you have to go transfer portal. They did bring in transfers last year. They're going to do it again in the future and have a new transfer QB. So that's all part of this too. But we talked briefly about Underwood and others. So for anyone who's maybe not aware and they don't dive as much into recruiting as we do, because it's a lot to dive into, and Pitt, again, has been doing a lot of work the last month or so, who else needs to get some credit? How important is Underwood to this operation and any others? And how much do they need to stay aboard this program to keep it in the direction of what Mike's saying of being a perennial top 25 on the field, ranking wise and recruiting wise, year in and year out?
Well, we mentioned a lot of the names, but I don't want to mention, the guys that we've mentioned. It's a team effort, because Narduzzi.
It is.
But the names that are at the forefront, we mention a lot. It starts with no question Charlie Partridge. He's 1A on the list. He's Pitt's top recruiter, known across the country, and the places they recruit the most, he's a factor in the guys they get. Florida is their top area that they recruit, and Charlie Partridge is a legend down there. That's not too strong of a word to use. He is known by every high school down there. He has a reputation down there, and schools down there have no problem trying to funnel their kids to Pitt because they know that if they're going to get coached by Partridge, they're going to get coached right. The other guys, and it's been a strategy of Pitt, they're going where the recruits are. There's always talk of Western Pennsylvania and do they need to recruit here more. They go to where the talent is. I know it's nice to say that you go where,
right.
to recruit in the WPIAL and get your hometown kids and all that. But Pat Narduzzi wants to win. He wants to load his roster with the best talent, and that's where he's going to go. And there's no two better states in the country as far as where Pitt's going to get kids than Florida and Georgia. That's it. You can mention Texas and California.
Right.
Pitt's tried to dive into Texas, and I think they're going to continue to do so. That's a little bit more difficult.
That's really tough. Those kids want to go to Texas and Oklahoma, no matter how good or bad they are.
And they have coaches on their staff that have relationships in Florida and Georgia, right. And that's why they bang those states. And when you go to Georgia, you're talking about Archie Collins. That's a place that he's been able to hit. Ryan Manilak's been going in there lately, helping out. But for the most part, that's a Archie Collins territory. But I think it's where Pitt is trying to recruit has been big as the assistants. Okay. They know where they have their success. They have schools that they're able to recruit well, and they don't try to deviate from that. They hit that, and they've done a heck of a job pulling a lot of big-name kids from places like Georgia and Florida where it's not easy to get. But the good thing is, although there are schools, Georgia Tech, Georgia, there's so much talent in Georgia that if Georgia can't take everybody on their roster.
Right. And if you're not good enough for Georgia, you're still very, very, very good. It's not an insult for Georgia to say, I'm sorry, we have too many 5-star kids. You're a 4-star, and then you end up at Pitt. Pitt is still very excited probably to have that player.
Yeah, and if you want an under-the-radar guy, as someone who doesn't get a lot of credit or exposure, it's Tim Salem, tight ends coach. I mean, he's the guy who found Kenny Pickett. He found Servassier Dennis. He's this guy they have in the Northeast who
been there a while.
He's been there a while. He's also he's the East Coast. He goes from New York to New Jersey all the way down to Florida, and he brings in guys every year. He gets a little flack recently for his tight end recruiting, which has been kind of a weird situation. But he's a guy who can find talent, and he is this ball of energy that recruits do really fall in love with when they're talking to him. So he's been a huge factor along the coast here.
Yeah. Who are some of the players that you guys maybe would want to mention that Pitt has earned commitments from that they haven't earned commitments from yet, but they need to lock in, or you think they're going to lock in, or whether it be a superstar everyone's aware of that a 4-star plus or a diamond in the rough? Because again, a lot of 4-stars in this class in a ranking that's top 10 for most national outlets.
Well, the biggest spot they don't have right now is quarterback. You got to have a quarterback in every class, even in today's age of bringing in transfer portal guys. And the guy I'm looking at right now for me is Trevor Jackson, 4-star from Florida. He was there 2 weekends ago, had a great visit, loved it. He's going to Texas A&M and Missouri still. I think if Pitt really wants to get him, they'll get him. Other than that, they have Henry Hasselback, NFL bloodline. He's visiting end of June. So I believe those are the 2 guys they have at quarterback they're really focusing in on. But I think if they want the guy, I think it's Trevor Jackson. Yeah.
The funny thing that we're going to have to start looking at here is when you have 21 recruits, your window of taking kids that you can accept,
right,
is shrunk, and they're probably zeroing on some kids, and after that, it's going to be closed. And their job is going now to be to keep those kids that they have in their class. And
if I'm a player that wants to go to Pitt now, I'm a little concerned there's not room for me.
Yeah, there's no question. Yeah, 6 6 months is a long way away from National Signing Day. I
Right.
believe there's been a lot of talk, and I'm on board with this now, that there should be a signing day instead of having one in December and February. I think they should have one now, June or July, when kids already have made their decision, and then have one in December, because there's just too much time now between NIL.
Yeah,
and
it
just
devalues the commitment now a little bit. It's you want to have it; it's good to have, but there's so much time.
Exactly, it's 6
And
months.
there's players we're going to get to one in a moment here that's committed, but he's visiting other schools. Like you would know what kids really think if they sign now, right?
Yeah, there's just so much time for programs to do whatever they want, whether legally or illegally, to get kids to change their mind. And
100%.
So, but Pitt's going to take another wide receiver. I would guess that they're probably going to take 2 more receivers. They're definitely going to take a running back. As Karl mentioned, they're going to take a quarterback. They'll take at least 1 defensive end, probably a linebacker and a defensive back. And after that, I don't know how much room they have. If they do all that, you're talking about 6 more guys. They have 21 kids, or they have 21 verbals. I don't know, Karl. I don't know. It's always hard to predict how many, because you're not in those recruiting meetings. You don't know how many kids they're going to take, how many maybe kids they anticipate maybe leaving at the end of the year. Although they're on the team now, they could see, maybe they're saying, well, this kid's probably not going to be here next year. But I can't see them taking from 21. I can't see them taking more than 4 more kids after that. A 25-man class would probably be probably what they're looking at, right?
20. I think 25.
Is that too big?
25 is a good number. I think 25 is a good number. I mean, if they can get, like you meant, all the positions you mentioned, I think if they can get 4 more guys to go along with, I mean, they still have 1 more official visit window, and they're going to have more guys commit then as well, and then they'll have some attrition through the season. I mean, I'm sure guys will come and go. That's just how it goes in college football. So I think 25, kind of maybe fluctuating a little bit toward National Signing Day, is a good target here for us.
Yeah, it makes sense when you also could lose some depth of players transfer wise. That just every program's going to lose, no matter how bad you are in the field, and then potentially bringing in transfers next year as well at some key positions that always are going to happen too.
Something else, that I know people don't like to bring this up because it's negative, but it happens every year. Before now in December, either somebody is probably going to decommit from 100%. Their current class, or the other thing that happens is, who knows? Pitt might tell them to.
True. They may
not be room for them.
Right. They may say that I'm glad you're committed, but hey, this kid over here, we didn't think we were going to get now wants to come aboard. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff between now and December. And if another 4-star kid, you hate to bring that up, but I deal in reality. If some 4-star player that they thought they were out of wants to join them, and they thought they were done at that position, things happen.
That might be why, Mike, that as much as it makes sense to do a signing period now and then you do one in December rather than have them so clumped together in the winter, maybe the program secretly is okay with the way it is now. Because if you were locking into kids signing now and they had 20 kids sign, it'd be hard to get out of kids if you get.
I think Narduzzi has talked about this before. It's a long time to try to.
It is a long time, 100%. Even if you move it to August or something right before the season, I could see that. It is a long time. Maybe they don't want to do it right now during June.
They have a hell of a class. They have a heck of a class here. Kids that are really good, and Karl and I are aware of. At least 2 other kids that are
been aware of.
Big time. That are going to be joining them in the probably sometime this month. So the class is going to get even better. And then there's other kids that are still waiting, as though, like Trevor Jackson, as he mentioned, he's a 4-star quarterback. There's some other 4-star kids that they're involved in. So things are going to be very interesting. And
a lot of NFL blood too. You mentioned Hasselbeck, a lot of NFL blood, which Pitt likes and then usually works out.
Yeah, this is going to be an exciting year. And the thing that this allows them to do a little bit too, Carl, is other programs do this, like Alabama, the really big time programs do this. Once you lock up your 2024 class, you're able to start looking at, you're able to start jumping into 25 a little bit more as far as strengthening the relationships with some of those kids and getting those kids up here and spending more time on them than maybe you wouldn't if you're worried about locking in 24. So that's the benefit of getting your class filled up. And it's something that, Pitt historically hasn't been able to do because they haven't been in this position, but it's a nice problem to have if they're able to, add a few more commitments here over the next month or so.
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, they're already hosting 25 guys along with the official visitors. So they're putting their work in early, trying to get to some of those guys. I mean, some schools do have some guys in the next class committed. Pitt doesn't yet, but I'm sure there's a few coming pretty soon.
Talk about a lot of time. I mean, that's hard to bank on.
Yeah. They're over a year and a half away right now. They have a long way to go, but
yeah, they had a kid on campus yesterday that I'm sure they would take the big thing with that too, Mike, and Carl, is that they're not going to take, some programs might, I know the way Narduzzi, he's not going to take a kid from 25 unless that kid's been here, number one.
Right.
And number two, he's fully has faith in that kid that he's not going to break word. And a kid like that was just on campus yesterday. I think I touched upon in the notebook, is a kid from North Catholic, Brady O'Hara, tight end, big time prospect. He was working out at Pitt's prospect camp yesterday. Now, if that kid wants to commit like today for the class of 25, they're going to take it.
It's easier when it's a local kid.
Yeah, right. Exactly. They're not going to do that with everybody, but that's a kid that if he wants to give a commitment early to Pitt, I'm pretty sure that they would have no problem letting him sign his name to the football.
Yeah, and Carl and even Mike too, just to touch on this because it's on Pittsburgh Sports Now. You had an interview with Rick Darius Farmer, Day, as maybe others would know him as, and this isn't negative news, but it's news to touch on that's not a kid locked in. This is a kid who's committed, but he just had an official visit down in Morgantown, and he's going to take others, and he's going to be visiting Pitt again. So I'm sure Pitt fans are wondering, committed. Obviously, Pitt's been impressive to a lot of kids. A lot of kids, four-star kids like him, are liking Pitt. Offensively, Pitt's been a great program. Pat Narduzzi's stable. He's not going anywhere, etc. Yet, this kid is dating. He's flirting with other programs, including rival, despite in a relationship with Pitt in a way, which I don't think anybody would enjoy. So, Carl and Mike, what is your concern level that he could actually be flipped and become a Mountaineer and be on the other side of the backyard brawl? Is that at all weird to you? Is that in any way a negative of him and this relationship that he's building with Pitt, or what more do you know about this? Because it's the only kid that's still out there as a four-star in the last couple of days that he's basically flaunting his love affair with other programs while committed to Pitt. It's odd.
Carl, you talked to him last night, so
so I talked to him. He's one of the guys who has a great bond with Coach Underwood. He committed to Pitt back in December because of Underwood. They have a great connection. He's been to Pitt 4 times, be 5 times in end of June. We mentioned getting kids on campus. That's like a huge factor for recruits in the program. His visit hasn't happened yet. And since he left West Virginia without flipping, I'm still pretty confident that he's a guy that Pitt will lock in when he comes to Pitt. He's going to UCF, I believe, today.
Were you nervous at all prior to the West Virginia visit?
I wouldn't say nervous. I don't think. I mean, he's a great recruit, great talent, a Florida kid. I wouldn't say he's like if they lose him, it's end of the world, doomsday scenario.
We did talk about off the air Bilal Marshall, who was not at West Virginia last year, and he's also Florida kind of legendary guy that maybe he's helping to pull him to even talk to West Virginia.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I think he's a kid who just wants to experience the recruiting process.
Yeah,
I know
that's fair. That's fair.
Pitt, yeah, that's very fair. Pitt isn't always kind of accepting of that, but he is one of the guys that they are super high on. He's a major target, 4-star kid, so they're not gonna kick him out for looking around a bit.
Right.
But I
Right.
think once he comes to Pitt for his OV and he gets to have that full experience, he locks back in with Coach Underwood. I think he'll be locked into Pitt again. It happened a bit in the first weekend when they hosted Eric Ingerson. He had an official visit planned for his in-state Nebraska, and when he left, Pat Narduzzi worked him enough to where he called that off, and he's locked back into Pitt again. So I think it's kind of the same. It'll be a similar scenario with Day Farmer when he makes.
Was it UCF? Is the other program that he has
Yeah,
one coming up?
I believe it's today. He's taking that OV to
Okay.
UCF.
Yeah, this week.
Okay. Pitt is his last one in end of June, and then once he's on campus, I don't think he'll leave without kind of reaffirming himself as a Pitt Panther commit.
Yeah, and let's remember he committed to Pitt. It's funny. It's the it's the way people think. Pitt fans are trained to think just because they don't want to be too positive. All Carl and I, if we had $1 for every time
right
we've saw a Twitter message or got a message from about Jazir Whittington, and he was the first guy to commit to Pitt. They'll never keep him. He committed early. He's a 4-star kid. That's way too early for. And Day Farmer committed to Pitt on Christmas Day, this 2022.
It's a long time ago now.
It's a long time. As Carl mentioned, the best thing is the thing that these kids want to make sure, and they want to maybe experience another college just to make sure. For the ones that committed real early, they want to make sure that they made the right decision. I know there's been Winnington visited Penn State unofficially a couple times during the season with his teammates from Philadelphia, and that drew all kind of attention. Oh no, he's going to flip here. He never ended up flipping. He's been the rock of Pitt's class so far. I'm not going to say Farmer is on the same level of him as far as his commitment level to Pitt. But I think Carl hit on the key point is that if he would have had his official visit to Pitt in June and he's still visiting other schools, or at the beginning of June, and then he's still visiting other schools, my concern level would probably be a little bit higher. The fact that Pitt's going to have that last visit with him in June, I think when he comes here next weekend, I think that'll close things. You'll see him say, "It's over. I'm going to Pitt." But it wouldn't shock me between now and December, him being from Florida, the type of talent he is. If one of those Miami, Florida,
those programs could get involved, right? 100%. Yeah,
it wouldn't shock me. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but. If
even UCF's in the Big 12 now, they weren't a year ago. So that's a program he's looking at. They're now a major conference program. Okay. Bilau's new at WVU that wasn't there a year ago. So as you're saying, Mike, he committed on Christmas Day. That's prior to Bilau Marshall. That's prior to UCF being officially in the that's prior to a lot of this news. So maybe honestly, if nothing against any of these kids, but if I was that level of a recruit, I think Christmas Day, a year plus in advance, it might be a little early for me to want to commit anywhere too. Like, you got so much more room and so much more, water to be tested. Yeah. So it's fair to him. He's being fair to Pitt by giving him the last visit. And honestly, what else do you expect the kid to say, or any kid? And we noticed this cover recruiting. Any kid that visits anywhere, if he doesn't love it, he's going to be very tight-lipped and kind of say a few different things. If it's at least good, he'll give you the glowing praise. And then if it's bad, he probably doesn't want to do the interview at all. Like, he's not going to go down to Morgantown and say, "Oh, it sucks. I hate everybody there." Yeah. You're gonna visit. And a lot of times if you're visiting one program, you mentioned someone visiting Pitt and then Penn State. Sometimes you visit programs that are close geographically because it's just easy trips. Why not go visit another program that wants you down there? Why not? I mean, you got to make sure you're locked in too. Pitt likes that probably, because then Pitt can say, if they get him in end of June, Pitt can say, well, he tested the waters with our rivals and he still picked us. He's even more locked in. And they can use it as a future coup to other kids that, hey, don't go there, go to us. This kid visited both programs and picked us, and they would have taken him. So you just never know. Anything else you guys want to get out there? Obviously, Pitt's been doing tons of work. It's been a lot of positive work here. We do have a long time to go before any of these kids really are going to get signed and sign on the dotted line. But there's reason for optimism around the Pitt team this coming season. And then also, even maybe more importantly, the next 2, 3, 4 years for the Pitt football program.
The only thing that I wrote a commentary on this, and we'll see how this ends up working. I'm on the I think I've mentioned it a million times already. I'm not into the WPIL thing. I don't care where Pitt gets recruits from. I don't care if they get them from Missouri or Illinois. I don't care. I don't care if they get one kid from the WPIL in a class. One kid that I would like to see them get, though, and I think it's important. I don't think it will crush their class if they don't get him, but I think it would just be it would cap things off if Pitt's able to get Cam Lindsey from Aliquippa. The biggest reason is because I think he's at a position of need. It has nothing to do with being from Aliquippa. It's the fact that I think he's a very, very good linebacker. I think in Pitt's system, he would be a very good linebacker. I think he could be a star in their system. I think he could play right away. It would be nice to beat out Penn State and West Virginia, who are the other two finalists for him. They both have recruited him very hard. They both would take him if he wanted to commit.
Sure. Yeah.
That's the one guy that I'm watching the rest of the way here. They're involved in some other kids. Cam Lindsey's the guy that I really hope he decides to stay home. I think we've seen some kids over the last few years decide to go elsewhere, and I'm not casting judgments on any kids that decide to go to schools and then maybe eventually come back to Pitt. But I think Pitt is an ideal situation for Lindsey. I think he'd be taken care of here. I think he'd be a star here. Fans would love it. And, in the end, that's the one kid. Trevor Jackson would be nice. I don't know much about him aside from what I read. I've seen Lindsey play. I know what he can do. He's the one guy that I hope Pitt adds between now and December.
Carl?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be an awesome story. It'd be an awesome, like you mentioned. You said he'd be a star in the system. He would be a legit star linebacker in the system. Trevor Jackson will be awesome. I don't think there's one key recruit they have to get. I think just keep doing what they're doing. Like keep bringing in the guys that they're bringing in. Keep winning the official visit windows and put together a class as top 20. That'll make a lot of people happy. It'll keep momentum going, and they'll enter the season already on a high note. I think the time is now to really build up the program under Pat Narduzzi and show people that the ACC championship wasn't a fluke, that last year's 9 wins could have been 10 or 11 wins, to show that the ACC isn't just Clemson, to show that Florida State shouldn't be crowned as this new powerhouse already. So
yeah,
I think Pitt has a great opportunity here, recruiting and on the field, to show that Pitt is it. Pitt's back.
Yeah, and I think the one big thing that I've even noticed is if Pitt really wants a kid, and you guys both have touched on this, they more often than not get that kid. And any of the recruits that Pitt has offered that maybe haven't committed yet, or maybe Pitt's not going to get or committed elsewhere, Pitt didn't put as much energy in to them as they are to the ones they are getting and going to get. So if Pitt feels you're somebody that fits them, they put the full court press in and they usually land the kid. And that's what you want to see when you see those percentages. And this is where you want to sit right now. You're not going to have every single one of these kids playing for the Pitt Panthers in the future. Something will happen with one of them. That's just math. That's just odds. We all would on that one of these kids, if not 2 or 3, are probably going to either decommit, or Pitt would quietly say, hey, we kind of need you to decommit now because we have somebody else. You'll get more playing time elsewhere. that all will happen. And it's a long time until National Signing Day. So whether those rules are going to be changed is another conversation. But as things stand now, there's reason for Pitt fans to feel very, very good about this class, especially when there was a national conversation that, yeah, Pitt's great on the field now. Yeah, they're bringing in transfers. But weirdly, recruiting-wise of high school kids, they still can't beat out some of the other quasi-local, geographically close colleges that they're rivals with. And now Pitt is beating them out. So a few months pass, and maybe that was a false narrative. For Karl Ludwig, Mike Vukovcan,
I just want to throw out one thing here real quick.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring it at the beginning, but the guy that got me into this business, Harry Paceros, he's going through some tough times right now.
See that. Yes,
his father passed away early this morning, George Paceros. So we don't have to tell Pitt fans who Harry Paceros is. So just everyone at PSN, we'd like to wish our Harry, Michelle, and his family all the best. We're thinking of you, Harry, and you'll get through this. And thanks for everything you've done for us. But definitely our thoughts and prayers are with you and your Harry, with your family, Harry, and the loss of your dad, George.
Yeah, and his kid's grandfather. So yeah, great guy for sure. I've been around him as well. Just a fantastic guy. And one of his kids actually looking at some schools too. So he's going to be a part of the future of recruiting. And he's certainly been a part of the PSN family. So for Karl Ludwig, Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti, that'll do it for this conversation about Pitt football recruiting here for Pittsburgh Sports Now. Check out the site for more news, notes, and analysis and what we've talked about here before we even get it fully released to you on the site. We may have some more news, so keep refreshing the page.